Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing the RAADS test to see if I get a high score for autism or a low score for autism. And I am so lucky today to be joined by my friend Lena Townsell. Say hi.
Hey.
Lena is autistic and I am not, but you never know what could happen with a test like this. So we'll see how our answers differ and all of that.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So because there's 80 questions, we're just going to do every fourth question, but we'll start with number 1. And question number 1 is, I am a sympathetic person. And the options are true now and when I was young, true only now, true only when I was younger than 16, or never true. So Lena, are you a sympathetic person?
I love this test. It's so, it's just so specific. But yeah, I would say it's really hard to like even come up with an answer for this because like what does that even mean? Like in what circumstances, like in what context, to who I can be sympathetic to people that I believe there's a legitimate reason to be sympathetic. I can be sympathetic for people I care about. I can be sympathetic when someone hurts themselves, but am I going to be sympathetic in situations that involve like I don't know justice? I don't know. Like it depends. So it's just a really hard question, and I definitely don't know if I was as a kid. Like I don't like I'd have to ask people that know me, and maybe they weren't even paying attention. So I don't even know how to answer this question.
Yeah. So my favorite thing about this test is that your score might indicate autism, but your reaction to the questions to me really is the indicator. Because when I read, I'm a sympathetic person, I go, yeah. Basically,
I mean,
most of the time, sure.
I would probably put yeah, but then I would be like, I don't know. I'm kind of lying a little, but it's fine.
Yeah, which for some autistic people is can't like lying of any kind of inauthenticity is like intolerable. And then there are other autistics that are compulsive liars because trauma is a thing. But yeah, so it can be difficult if you're like, oh, I don't know exactly if this is right, I don't want to lie, I don't want to get it wrong. It's like, well, but I don't know, for me I'm like, yeah, I think so. I think I was true now, and when I was young I've generally sympathetic.
Yeah, and then there's also people that are more like maybe less self-aware, that have built up like this idea of themselves, like and it's part of their mask, right? And I think that is true for me. When I first was taking these tests, I was trying to show my best. I was trying to put my best foot forward. So like I gave the most positive answer that I could give, and I feel like a lot of people have been in that situation.
Yeah, I think that generally we know that being sympathetic is a value, like that's something that's valued in our society. So a lot of people will take those values and equate it with being a good person. So if I'm not sympathetic, I'm a bad person. So I can't say I'm not sympathetic. Like I know I'm a good person, so I must be sympathetic, even though like maybe you're not particularly sympathetic.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 5. I often don't know how to act in social situations.
Again, so specific. But I think I was confused the first time I saw this. I'm confused still. I think it's hard to really say, but I mean I probably put yes. True only now I probably put, but like yeah, it's confusing because it's like what do you even say? Like do I get confused? Yeah, sometimes. Do I still like fake it till I make it? Yeah. Like, and does that mean that I don't know how to act? Or does that mean like, I don't know, like I have pretty good observation skills. So like I just kind of follow along with what everybody else is doing. I don't know if that means I don't know how to act. I think it just means that like I know how to camouflage, but I don't know. Like, does that mean that I know for sure that what I'm doing is the right way to act? No. But I'm doing what everyone else is doing, so I'm hoping. Like, I don't know.
Is that usually your go-to, is just look around and do what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, I think to a degree, like I'm kind of doing a lot of work. I'm like, okay, like if everyone's laughing at somebody, that I'm not gonna do that, right? So I'm like, okay, that's not correct. Like they're all wrong in this situation. But if it's like neutral, then yeah, I'm probably going to be doing what everyone else is doing, and I'm trying to emulate them as best as I can in the situation. Or I'm like being a quiet version of them, where I'm not like if everybody's trying to attract attention, I'm very much not, unless I know for sure what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of in the background, like half doing what everyone else is doing, like, yeah, cool. Like so yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. For me, I often don't know. I feel like I usually know how to act. That doesn't mean I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So I've got the ADHD. So sometimes impulsivity is like, I know I'm supposed to shut up right now. Oh God, I'm talking again. Oh no.
I also experienced that. Yes, it definitely depends on the situation, but
Yeah, but I do feel like and there's always like, if I'm in a new social situation I've never experienced before, like I might not know how to act, but yeah, like you said, I can look around, I can see what people are doing, and I have a general idea of like, this is how people are supposed to act in a business setting, this is how you're supposed to act in like a friendship setting. Like I feel like I have vibes, of how I'm supposed to act. It's not something that I don't worry about knowing. That's not something I worry about, right? I don't worry about like, how should I act? I worry about like, Sheila, keep it together. Right.
Like, fair. And for me, it's definitely both. It's like, I know in some situations, like I know how to act, but I couldn't possibly do that right now. I just have to like try my best to keep it all together. And other times it's like, well, I'm new in this situation, so I'm just gonna look around and see what everyone else is doing, and try to figure it out from there. So it just sort of depends.
Yeah. Okay. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay.
Yeah.
This is going to be a math issue later on. Okay. I focus on details rather than the overall idea. This is a good one.
Okay. So again, it depends. Like I like to say I'm detail oriented, but it's really about specific things. So I mean, in this situation, I probably think like, well, what is this question getting at? Like, what are they trying to say here? Because like at the end of the day, like if I don't know how to answer it, then I have to figure out what the quote unquote right answer is. And so I'm like, okay, but then I'm like, well, should I put the right answer? Is that cheating? Right. So then I'm like, oh, but I would probably end up just picking what I know they're getting at, which is like, do I hyper focus on specifics? And yes, I do hyper focus on specifics. And I think that has been true for most of my life. If I think back on the stories that I've told that my parents have told me. So that's probably what I would end up saying after like going back and forth about it for a while in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. This one's really interesting because I have the opposite thing where I just really miss details. Except for every once in a while, random, inconsequential details will stick with me for no reason. But like in general, I'm very much like a big picture thinker, not detail oriented, like at all. And that's a struggle for me for sure, that I usually call upon my autistic friends to help with. But what I think is really interesting about that is that it seems like the autistic brain like processes things in such a way that in some ways it like needs a lot of these little details, and that can be a struggle. Like I see so much because I like coach couples, and one's autistic and one's allistic, will often be like, well, you said that Wednesday we did this, but actually we did it Thursday, and the other person's like, it doesn't matter what day, like, it doesn't matter what day this happened. You called me a jerk. That's what matters. Like my feelings have nothing to do with Wednesday. But
yeah,
but for the autistic person, it is relevant because it's like how this connects to this. I can't get here with you until I stair step. my way there, right? And so it's just like part of the autistic processing that can be such a struggle in certain situations, but also can be such a superpower or whatever, like such a benefit in other situations where you're seeing things that other people aren't seeing. And like I find that really fascinating because I'm the like really on the other end of the spectrum where I'm just like, huh, there was details, what, like, you know. So,
yeah. And for I feel like for an ADHDer, it can go so many ways. So like when it's something that I don't really care about, I tend to think more big picture because I don't want to focus on the details. Like the details are boring and exhausting. Why would I want to do that? But if it's something that I really care about, like, I don't know, like semantics or like, if it's like a hyper fixation of mine or like a special interest, then like I'm probably going to zero in on very specific details to the point of like, I don't know, like debilitation. Like if I'm like planning a trip, it's like, okay, well, let me think of every single possible scenario that could happen in this trip and like everything I could possibly need to the point where I just get so exhausted I can't even finish the trip. It's just like, there's so much more to consider, So it really does depend. And I think that, yeah, it can be tough when you're both to like balance that.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from the ADHDers, from the meerkats. And if you're ADHD, if you're autistic and ADHD, you should check out Lena and I have a group with our friend Joris called the Meerkat Squad for coaching ADHD. It's pretty fun.
Yes. Big fan. Not all
so,
biased.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 13. I only like to think and talk about a few things that interest me.
Again, no, because some of us have ADHD as well. So, there's that. There are some times where I like to think and talk about a few things that interest me. And then there's other times where I'm talking about anything and everything because I'm dopamine farming and I just want to talk. Like, it depends. But I know what they're getting at, which is like there's special interests that we have that we really like to talk about at length. And so I would be like, okay, this is what they want me to answer. Should I answer it? Should I half answer it? Like, so that I'm only half lying or half cheating?
Yeah. There are some autistics like that, tell me that it's actually painful to have to talk about things or hear about things that are not in their like special interest. One of their like 4 special interests or whatever. And they're just like, I feel like a jerk because anytime anyone's talking about anything that's not this, I'm just waiting for like an opportunity to change the subject. And like, it just makes me feel selfish. And am I selfish? I'm like, you're not selfish. It's just, that's how your brain works. You just need to be around people that share those interests so that doesn't happen, but that does sound really like a struggle. It's like, I can't focus on my homework because it has nothing to do with my special interest. And so if you have a broad special interest, like human behavior, then you can tie that to a lot of things, or like nature, you can tie that to a lot of things. But if your special interest is like washing machines, you're like, crap, like
right.
So you can like tie that too. So yeah, that sounds like a struggle. For me, I definitely like to talk about a lot of things that interest me, and whatever is like my current hyperfixation is going to be extra, like, if I'm reading about something specifically and then someone brings it up, or, if like I'm reading a book right now that's about like Jewish mythology, and I have a Jewish client who was like, oh, I'm getting ready for Purim, like, the Jewish holiday. And I just wanted to go, I'm reading this book and like, let me tell you all about it. I'm like, no, talk to me. I can't. Okay. So, that definitely can be a problem, but no, I definitely like to talk about a broad spectrum of things.
Yeah, I think I'm lucky in the sense that like my special interests are pretty broad, and also like in general I'm just interested in getting to know about people. So like it really doesn't matter what you're talking about, like I'm just learning about you as a person. And so I'm probably not fully listening. It's more like I'm listening for certain information and like watching your mannerisms and things, but it looks like I'm listening, and I'm getting the information I need from what you're saying. I'm just not going to remember the exact sentence you said because I'm like, okay, this is what they like. This is how they like it. This is how interested they are because their eyebrows are doing this. And, like I'm more focused on interestingly enough, both the general idea and hyper specifics that are not exactly related to what you're talking about. So it kind of helps me in like broader situations, but not so much in like, I don't know, like interpersonal relationships when people really want me to like focus on what they're talking about specifically. Um, and yeah, it can be hard to stay present in those moments for sure. I have to try not to zone out and focus on what their eyebrows are doing.
Yeah. And humans at home that have a autistic or ADHD or ADHD loved one, that doesn't mean we don't care about you. Doesn't mean we don't care
Right.
about what you're saying. Doesn't mean we don't love you. It's just this, you know.
If anything, it means I care more. It's just the way that I care isn't the way that you would expect. Because, like,
Yeah.
if I'm focused on what your eyebrows are doing, I clearly care about what you got going
Yeah.
on. You're on the topic, just maybe not the topic itself.
Right. Okay, number 17. Others consider me odd or different.
Well, that one is actually pretty easy. Yeah, that one's not that hard. Yep. But like I like the only people that don't is probably like my family members that also are autistic. But you know, most people, yeah. So that one's pretty easy for me.
Yeah, I have I worked with kids since I was, you know, a teenager. And it's just so common for kids to be like, you're weird. Like that's just like the most said phrase to me, probably.
Exactly.
You're weird. And yeah, I think that when I was younger, it was sort of in a bad way. Like when I was a kid, I got bullied and like, you know, I think people thought I was weird, but then I think I caught up socially, I guess, by like middle school, high school. And then it was like, oh, you're weird, but it's cool, you know, because I was like weird with like some social ability to like schmooze and like charm people, you know, and then it's like, well, and my parents were always like, oh, she's quirky, you know, whatever.
That's the word, quirky.
Yeah, like my mom would say, what is she said, Sheila does things her way. Sheila does things her way. Because my hair was pink, you know, to her, she was just like, wow, you know.
Right, exactly.
But I think that nowadays people would only consider me like, I don't know, I'm around neurodivergent people so much, I don't feel like people consider me that odd or different anymore. But sometimes I'll get myself into a situation like, oh, we had a neighborhood potluck and everyone was just like, oh, the weather's so nice though. And I'm sure some of those people are just masking, right? But I was literally just like, hey, I just want to talk about something, like, and so I'll kind of blurt something like, oh, my chick, I don't know, like something, my dog had diarrhea like, because I'm like, I am so bored with what you're saying, you know, and like, and I know you don't want to be talking about this either. I know it, I can see it in your face, you know, like
why are we doing this?
Yeah. So, and I can tell like people can be kind of like tickled by me just like being a little unexpected, but I wouldn't say I'm like, people are like, well, that girl's odd, like anymore. I hope, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've found a way to be lovably weird, but I'm always gonna be weird. And I've kind of known that for a while. So I'm just kind of like, if I can find a way to have people be like, yeah, she's weird, but she's our weird, like I'm good. Like I got an in. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, number 21, it can be very intimidating for me to talk to more than one person at a time.
I would say that's actually not that bad of a question either. I would say, yeah, I'm not very good with groups. I get anxious around groups. And if more than one person are talking at once, oh, I'm overstimulated and I'm gonna be mad. Like I'm just gonna be like, okay, no, stop. This is not working for me. So yeah, I would unless there are moments, I guess, where it's like a really big group where I can just kind of zero in on a person and then be like, okay, this is the person that's talking. And it's all background noise. And then this person is talking about something else more interesting. So I'm done talking to you. Now I'm talking to them. But I don't know if I'm doing it right. You know, I might have like, I don't know, maybe me and the person were connecting and I didn't notice because I was more focused on looking like I was listening than actually listening. And then something actually interesting caught my attention. And so I'm like, bye. What did you say? Like that can happen. And then I'm probably still thinking about that in the back of my head, like, wait, was that person actually connecting with me? Like, should I go back to that conversation? Well, I'm already in this conversation now, so maybe it's too late for that, and I just need to let it go. Like, there's a lot going on in the background. So it's still very intimidating. Even if I can do it, it's still intimidating. I would say that's a much more direct question for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for me, I wouldn't call it intimidating to talk to more than one person at a time. But I do struggle sometimes with either if I really have something to say about the topic, I can take over and now all of a sudden I'm like doing a TED talk to the group, or or I go into like, Sheila, shut up, let them talk, and then I almost like go into like a listening mode where then I'm just like sitting there, and then so I usually like have a sketchbook or something, and I enjoy those times when I'm like in a group of people and like, you know, a little group at my house or at Denny's or whatever, and I'm like just coloring or drawing and like chiming in here and there. I kind of just like go into like a different mode. If I can't be fully out, then I have to kind of just like either I'm gonna explode or I have to just be like, okay, I'm going into like a passive listening mode. But I wouldn't call it intimidating. I know I do hear from autistics that some of them struggle with this because of the monotropism, like with switching gears. Like, oh, this person wants me to be more bubbly, but this person wants me to be more subdued, and then or just like the idea of masking, and maybe you have a different mask with this person than with this person, and so having them in the same room, there's like identity crisis. Do you experience that?
Yeah. I've definitely had moments where like I want to do the thing where like, you know, you want to have like a big birthday party, and so you invite like all your people, and then I'm thinking about it and I'm like, what have I done? Like, this is gonna be, I mean, I'm different people for each of these groups. This is gonna be something. And then I have to figure out a way to like, I don't know, make it so that when they do interact with each other, I can separate them into different groups and be that different person for each group. Or just decide to unmask a little bit more. Usually that means, you know, some form of alcohol is involved. But yeah, it's just it is tough, and it can be hard to switch gears like that consistently, and it is draining, but it's also fun. I mean, I think if you go into it planning to do it, it's a lot, like if you're agreeing to it, you're consenting to it, you're planning for it, you know, it's less stressful because you're sort of, there's an autonomy involved that makes it a lot easier to manage. But if it's forced upon you, and there's just like I don't know, like you have a surprise party, or you know, like maybe one of your family members wants you to meet some of their coworkers, and you're like, oh, there's too many personalities. Like, it can be a completely different situation where it's very intimidating and overwhelming, and you need like 3 days where you just don't talk to anybody. So yeah,
I don't experience that. That's awesome. Definitely hear that from a lot of autistic people. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, number 25. It is difficult for me to understand how other people are feeling when we're talking.
Again, it depends. I think more times than not, no. But it's more about like whether or not I know what to do. You know, I know how they feel. I just don't necessarily know how to interact with them when they're feeling it.
I was gonna say that. I literally, when I read this, I was like, oh, from what I hear, it's not that they struggle to know what the person's feeling. They struggle to know what to do about it.
Right. Like, okay, I know you're angry, but how do you want me to respond to that? Like, should I pretend that you're not angry with you? Because a lot of times people act like they're not mad when they are, and then you're like, you're mad. And they're like, no, I'm not. And then it's like, okay, well, now I feel like you're gaslighting me, and that's kind of making me mad. But I can't be mad because it's your mad that we're focused on right now. And I don't even know if we should be focused on it right now because you're acting like it doesn't exist. And now I'm tired, and I actually want to leave this entire conversation because this whole thing sucks. So bye. Like, you know, that's kind of how it goes with me.
I tell all my autistic clients, like, if you can tell someone is feeling a different way than they are showing up, like, or than they're saying, there's like, clearly they're mad, but they're saying I'm not mad. Clearly they're sad or upset, but they're saying they're not upset. Just phrase that, they're saying, I'm not ready to talk about it. That's what that, pretend like they said that to you. They do not have those skills. They're not going to do that. Just pretend like they did. And if it's your partner, train them to say that, because
yeah. And I've had to tell some of my loved ones that like when they're like, what's wrong? Nothing. You're lying. No, actually, I just don't want to get into this with you. I'm not lying. There's no point in doing this. So I get that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, but you're acting like you're mad, and so we just act like this is not happening.
I mean, if you don't want to,
either you need space and I need to leave you alone and we need to stop talking, or you need to address this. Like, there's no,
or take some acting classes. Like, that's
yeah. And so then I just end up pissing people off because I'm like pushing them to like express what they aren't ready to, but they already are expressing it, and it's giving me anxiety. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with this other than make you let it out or leave, So yeah, 25 again is kind of a complicated, because it's like, I know where you're getting where you're going with this, but it's not really the right question to ask in this situation.
Yeah, there definitely are autistics who do struggle with just reading emotion, like even like showing like a smiley face, and they'll be like, what emotion is this? Or like, I don't know, like that is a thing. But that's definitely not all autistics,
Right.
And so this is like, but that doesn't mean that there's not other struggles with, emotional relating. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's not difficult for me. That would be just a simple one. It's generally, I mean, I'm not always right. People do lie and act and whatever, but like generally, I feel like I understand how people are feeling when we're talking. Sometimes I do, that RSD can come in though and be like, do they hate me? But that's different.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah.
Because I'll be like, oh, I can tell that you're uncomfortable. Do you have to pee? Do you have somewhere to be? Or do you just like hate talking to me? I don't know,
Right.
And that's okay. Right. We just have to be okay with not knowing. 28, 29. Okay. I hope I'm getting these numbers right. 26, 27, 28, 29. Yeah. Okay, great. Some ordinary textures that do not bother others feel very offensive when they touch my skin.
See, why can't all the questions be like this? It says some, like that makes it so much more specific. Like, yes, 100%. Yeah, I have no problem with this question at all. 100% yes.
Yeah.
Although, okay, actually, there's something. Do not bother others. How do we know? How do we know if it bothers others or not? True. How do we know everybody?
When you're surrounded by which others? Because
everyone
I know is bothered by this.
Right. Like everybody hates this texture as far as I know, like in my bubble. So I don't know. And then like do people just regularly talk about how textures bother them or not? No. Like, how am I supposed to know? I just know what I'm comfortable in, and I know what I hate, but I don't necessarily know if people are like really like just better at like faking that they don't hate it than me. Like maybe they just aren't as sensitive to it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't bother them. Like what does bother mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's real. That's so real. And like, I talk to so many people about this stuff because they're like, oh, you're an ADHD coach, blah, blah, blah. And so I'll end up talking to people about their brains and their preferences and like, and I've never met a person that has no sensory icks. You know, like everybody has some sensory things, or like no social anxiety, or no, like there's like but to what degree? Like, and so I feel like the question is like, do textures bothering you, does that affect your life? Like, it's not like affecting your daily life.
Right.
Because like I have cotton for me, like cotton balls, absolutely hate, like, and the only time that ever comes up is if I get a bottle of like pills and there's a cotton ball and I have to go to my roommate like, can you get this out? Get it out. I don't want to touch it.
That's gonna suck.
But otherwise, like, it doesn't affect my life. That doesn't mean it's not a very intense reaction, but like or if I go to the dentist and they're gonna put cotton in my mouth, I'm like, just don't. That's no, but that's like once every 5 years or something. Like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah. And ADHD also has sensory, like all the newest research shows that ADHDers are also sensory. sensitive. I just watched like a TikTok of this doctor talking about how he's got all these ADHDers coming to him saying, I think I'm autistic because I have sensory issues. He's like, do you have any of the other symptoms? No, that's just ADHD, man. It's just the ADHD. Like, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
33. Oh, you're gonna hate this question.
Normal.
With a normal rhythm.
Normal. See, now we're back to the okay. I wouldn't even know what to say to this, but again, I know what they're getting at, which is like there's a certain meter that other people find to not be normal, or that other people find to be strange, to a point where someone would point it out to you. Yeah, I get that. But not everybody is that, blatant with it. It's like, there might be some things that are a little strange that people maybe might pick up on, but not enough to be like, you speak weird. Like, and so it's like, how do I know what other people think about how I speak? I think I speak fine. I don't know. I mean, I would think that I've mimicked the people in my life well enough to, who knows? So I would probably say it's true now when I was young in this case, because like there's no way for me to know anything else, like, because nobody's ever told me anything different. But I would be like how do you expect people to know that? That's kind of how I would think of it when I'm answering the question.
Yeah, I think about that too. Like there are people that I meet and they say a sentence and I go, oh, autistic,
For sure.
Like, and it's like, do they know that they talk like that? I don't know if they know, because who's saying to them, hey, you talk autistic, like,
Right.
And then there's so many autistic people going like, there's not a way to talk autistic. I don't talk like that. It's like, yeah, but there is. Some people.
There's definitely an accent and a meter that exists that people can identify. However, there's varying degrees of it, and like there's varying reasons for it. So it's just like,
Yeah. I think I speak with a normal rhythm, aside from the fact that sometimes I'm on fast forward when I get excited.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think so. No one's ever told me otherwise.
Right. Exactly.
You sound normal to me, by the way. I don't tick up any, I know you, but that's not because of TikTok.
Right. Good to know.
37. I am an understanding type of person.
That is the most vague like, come on, man. Sometimes, and this is another thing, another problem I have with this test is it needs, I feel like if it's going to be this vague, it needs to have more specific like answers. Like, instead of like true, it needs to be like sometimes true, like, always true. Like, you need to add more than ABCD, because sometimes, sure, when I'm overstimulated, when I'm tired, when I'm like, when I'm having a lot of stress in my life, maybe not. Maybe people would say otherwise, and maybe I won't notice it. Like, maybe I think I'm being understanding, but according, like, the way that they would want me to perform understanding is different, or the way, like, it's also not really something that you can fully judge on your own, because understanding implies that there's like a relationship happening between two people, where they're telling you something, you're understanding it, and you're expressing that understanding to them in a way that they would say like, okay, like, you get it. Like, I don't think it's something where you can just be like, that's not an internal thing to me.
I interpret being an understanding person not as understanding people, but actually as the way that people usually use that is like, an understanding person is like an empathetic person, or like someone who like doesn't judge too harshly. Is that an autistic holistic literal versus not literal thinking thing? Maybe that like language.
Maybe, because when I think of it, I mean, I think that's a part of it. I think it's like that's a part of it, and then there's also tolerance. But then I also think of like,
I feel it's like I understand means like I'm okay with it, like I forgive you. I like have a, yeah. And which, like, what is people pleasing and what is being understanding? Are you really understanding, or are you sucking it up so that you don't have to like cause waves or whatever, you know?
Exactly. Like, does that really make it? So like, I think it's a combo thing. I think, yes, part of me is taking it literally where it's like, well, am I really understanding? Do they think I'm understanding what they're saying and what they're feeling? But I also think it's like, it's a more, like, I think understanding is a complex word where it's like a lot of it's performative. It's not about like what you're actually being able to like comprehend and like regurgitate back or whatever. So I don't know. Ultimately,
And I just look at this, I'm like, I'm an understanding type of person.
yeah.
Yeah, I am.
I mean, I think if I were to just be masking, I would say yes. If I in my head, I would be like, I mean, is that really the right answer? I don't know, but I want people to think I am, so I am, you know, and that's what it would be.
Yeah. What do they want me to understand? Because some things I'm not going to understand. Yeah, I think that's what I just see it as, like, in general. Like, of course, there are sometimes I'm not understanding if I'm cranky, or if I literally have a different like reality or worldview than another person, then maybe I am going to go for judging instead of, you know, whatever. But in general, I'm understanding. Yeah, true now and when I was young.
Yeah.
What's
Although
the
I
next
don't know
number?
if I was when I was young. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
I think it took me a while to get there. I needed some help. But
That's
yeah.
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, well, because they talk about like the like autistic, you know, there's like the double empathy problem, right? Where it's like if you're surrounded by allistic people, then obviously like your worldview is different. It's gonna make you seem like you're not as empathetic because you're not being empathetic to their worldview, but they're
Right.
also not being empathetic to yours. You're just the
Exactly.
odd man out, right? And so like
Exactly.
that can make it look like that. But also there are a lot of autistics who actually do have lower empathy, like cognitive empathy. It's like, if I can't understand, this is a completely different issue than the other one, is like, and it's not all autistics experience this, but some do for sure, that like, if I don't understand why you're upset, I cannot feel bad for you, you know?
I think that was the case for me when I was younger, for sure.
I
And I think,
oh,
wait,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, finish what you're saying.
I was just gonna say, like, the more experiences I had, the easier it was for me to empathize with situations that I didn't fully understand because I was able to sort of compare it to something similar that I had experienced, and then I could be like, well, that makes sense. But like, the less experiences I had, the more I was like, that's dumb. Like, what are you upset about? Like, um, or like, you put yourself in that situation. Like, why would you then be upset about it? Like, grow up, you know? Like, it took me a while. It really took me a while, and it took me being put in situations where that were kind of similar to be like, oh, okay. They didn't exactly put themselves in that situation. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I got it now. Like, so
Whenever I think about that, I think I had one student. I've had a lot of students that had this issue, but I had one student who had it very strongly, and like anything that he had experienced, he would have tons of empathy. Just like he would be crying along with the person, just like deep, intense empathy. But anything that he had not experienced, it was just that it was like, that's stupid. Like, or even just like, you're not upset about that. And I'd be like, no, he is upset about that. And he'll be like, that doesn't make sense. He's not really, he's faking it. He's not upset about that. It's like, just because you wouldn't be upset about that doesn't mean he's not upset about that.
That's funny. I don't think I was ever like that apathetic, but it was more like, why are you upset about that? Or like, it was like, you shouldn't be upset about that, or you know, something of that nature. Not like, I think you're faking. I can tell you're upset. This is real. I just don't know why. It don't make no sense. Like, just get out of the situation. What's your problem? You know, it just didn't seem practical. But then, you know, life happens. You have more experiences, and you go, okay, yeah, they really cared about this person, even if it didn't make sense. Or okay, like, this is like a situation that was out of their control because of these other things that I wasn't considering that I'm now experiencing, you know? different stuff like that. Like, it eventually it gets to a point where you can broaden your perspective about things, where it's like, okay, I didn't directly experience this, but I can, like, I've practiced this enough to know that I can see a parallel in my life and therefore empathize because I've experienced a tiny piece of this. But it definitely took practice and time to do that.
Thanks for all that.
Yeah, no
Perspective is so interesting. Number 41. I keep lists of things that interest me, even when they have no practical use. For example, sports statistics, train schedules, calendar dates, historical facts and dates, etc.
Yeah. So again, this is one of those I get what they're getting at questions, because the examples suck. But I do keep lists of things that interest me. I do think they have a practical use. So, but I get the idea, you know. Yes, I would say yes, true now and when I was young. But I would also have some trouble with this question because, you know, being an AuDHDer, I didn't do that right away. It wasn't like an automatic thing for me. It's like something that like I was taught in order to like organize my thoughts because I was all over the place. And then, you know, my mom got me a journal. And then I started organizing my thoughts in said journal. And I was like, oh, this is nice. But like, if I was never given that journal, I might not do that. I might just be, I don't know, all over the place and just like, what do I even do with what's going on in my brain right now? So, yeah, and it took me a while to want to do it, I think. I mean, I think with some things it was easier than others, but like with other things, I was just like, ugh, like, why do I have to do this? You know, like I was rebelling because of the executive dysfunction that was involved in doing such a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I would say yes in both scenarios, but there's more to the story that I can't really expound upon here.
Yeah. Yep. I like making lists because I wouldn't say necessarily things that interest me, but I do like to, I mean, I like to externalize my thoughts. That's like a coping mechanism for me because my thoughts are crazy. So like I do tend to make a lot of lists of things, like even like I have a list of but then I'll lose them. I made this list, is comprehensive list of like 31 Christmas movies for December or whatever, like the best ones. And I don't know where it is. I'm never gonna be able to use it. You know, I had this idea and I got my friends in on it, and then we did it, and then now it's gone. You know, but and so often I'll start a list like that and get through like 10 of them and then lose it or give up on it and like get distracted, like the executive dysfunction, like you were saying. All right, number 45. It can be hard. This one's like too similar to the other one. I'm gonna skip 49. I have been told that I have an unusual voice. For example, flat, monotone, childish, or high pitched. So this is similar to the other one, but not exactly.
Yeah, it's more about tone than meter, which is, yeah. But I think for once they did a good job of giving some examples so you could have more of an idea of what they're getting at and whether or not it actually, you know, you can say. But I don't think that's the case for me. I mean, I definitely haven't been told that. Again, like that I have been told. It's like, what if people don't have people that tell them things? Like,
yeah, I would say, if you want to know, I would say you have a little bit of a flat affect. Like
really?
Not super noticeable, but some, yeah. Like some, like a little bit. When you're not like on, like right now we're like really into something that we're like talking about. But if you're just like talking about like, oh, today I went to the store, I did this, I did that, it gets a little Daria. Yeah.
I did not know that. Wow, look at me. The more you know.
But that's the thing with a lot of autistics, that it's a flat affect when you're not having like big emotions, but then when you're actually interested in something, then like all of a sudden all the like, you know, expressions come out. So
yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense because when I'm in situations where I don't really care about what people are talking about, like I overdo it. So I guess, so like people don't think I don't care. So I guess that, yeah, that tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now one person has told you that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. No, I have not been told I have an unusual voice. Unless I'm putting one on.
Yeah, I love people with flat affects though, like monotone voices. I weirdly enough, like I think some people find it to be understimulating. I don't. It actually makes me like, I don't know, lock in more because I'm like, what does this mean? Like there's not really a lot of tone for me to figure out like automatically. Like I have to really focus to figure it out. And then they start telling jokes and I'm like, oh my God, that's great. Like this dry humor with this monotone is amazing. And like I'm not even sure everybody got it, but I got it. I was listening, you know.
Yeah, I think like my idols when I was a kid were like Daria and Janine Garofalo. So when I hear that, like, yeah, dry humor, flat affect, I think I just think of the 90s and like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I like
it really does feel a little like, I don't know, like there's some emotion there for sure. It's great.
yeah, I like it.
Mhm.
Okay, the next one would be 53, right?
Yes.
Okay. You're gonna hate this one. I am considered by who? A
Right.
compassionate type of person.
This is like the understanding thing. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know. Sure. Depends on who you ask, depends on when. Sure, I guess. If I wanted you to think I was, then yeah, I sure am. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I consider you a compassionate type of person.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think
Uh,
overall I would say that I am. Like if I were to like weigh everything, I
yeah.
think, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're like dedicated your life to like helping people. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the traits I write down when I think about myself. So, yeah.
yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. I think I am considered a compassionate type of person, unless you're one of my students and you're like, she makes me do homework, but like, otherwise I think she's terrible.
Right.
Sometimes I have to cover my ears to block out painful noises like vacuum cleaners or people talking too much or too loudly.
Okay, so this is one of those questions where like you have to really think about masking, like because I don't do that, but the reason why I don't do that is because of masking. Like it doesn't mean that it doesn't bother me. It just means that I don't want to look like I don't want to look like I'm like the only person who's bothered by something. So I'm not gonna do it. Or if I am, I'm gonna do it like subtly, like like I'm like, I'm like playing with my hair and I'm plugging my ear or whatever, or like I'm like listening to something else, so I don't have to think about it, like putting on
Are
headphones.
things like vacuum cleaners or like a lot of people talking loudly, like are those painful for you? Like
It,
either emotionally or physically?
it can be if I'm like I don't know, like if I'm sleep deprived or like I think a lot of my sensory issues they depend on how much stress I'm under physically and emotionally. So I can usually tolerate a lot to a point. If I've had a like really hard day, then like I don't know, like babies crying will piss me off. If like I'm really sleepy or like it's early in the morning, then like anything can set me off that happens to be like outside of what is the normal noise of the room. But if it's like a normal day, I it's all background noise to me. It doesn't really bother me. So it just depends.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say no. I do though, like I really hate, when you like go to a concert or something and then afterwards you're like in a fishbowl, like your
Oh
ears are like
yeah.
that. Like I hate that so much that
Mm.
I will cover my ears around loud noise. Not a vacuum cleaner, that's not loud. I mean, well, no offense autistic to you if it's loud, it's really loud, but like to me that's not. But if it's like something really loud, I will like I'll full on like because I'm so afraid
Yeah.
of having ear damage. Like I really like having my senses.
Mm.
I don't wear glasses. I don't knock on wood. Like like I'm just like I
Yeah.
don't like lose that. So out of a fear, I have no shame. I will
Mm.
absolutely cover my ears, but I don't usually need to in most situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's certain noises that are just obnoxious. Like if I'm next to a train, like
Mm.
that'll kill me. Or like, I don't know, something really high pitched or sometimes like the hum of like certain electronics will bother me if it's like pretty quiet in every other sense. That'll like really bother me because it's just like the one thing that's like, singled out of everything that's quiet. Um, but yeah, most of the time I don't know. I find a way to just what's the word? Like block it out. It's also worse if I'm trying to focus on something, I think. Like if I'm trying to focus on like a test or like I'm trying to read something important or I'm trying to do homework or something, then like sounds bother me. But yeah, it just depends on the situation, I guess.
Yeah, sounds like that. Yeah, mostly don't notice things. I even my roommate was like, "Oh, that train goes by like 3 times a day. I live near a train." And I was like, "There's a train?" Like they're autistic, obviously. So like, like and I was just like, "What?" But I will say I do have an interesting thing that I've heard from other ADHDers where like a sort of like the sound of a fan or just like a ooh kind of noise will, and I see these like videos, it's like if you're ADHD, watch this, like quiet your brain or whatever, and it really does do something where it like makes my brain quiet. So I love like having the fan on for sleep, but I hate having the fan on when I'm trying to think. Once I get up in the morning and I'm like, what do I need to do first? Where are my pants? I'm like, get the fan off. Like I can't think because the fan is going like, and my brain just goes like numb. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I can definitely, I can see that. I can somewhat resonate with that. I think it depends. I don't know if it's exactly the fan, but there are things like that that can happen for sure.
Yeah. Brains are fascinating. 61. I am considered a loner by those who know me best.
No, I don't think so. Does that mean that I would consider myself that though? Like again, it's like I know what you're getting at here. And I don't know if I would consider myself one. I don't think anyone would consider me that way, but that doesn't mean that I'm not one. That doesn't mean, doesn't mean that there isn't some, like I don't have a lot of alone time. And also nobody's ever told me that, but doesn't mean if I were to ask them, they might be like, well, yeah, I guess if I think about it, like, I don't know. But I probably would just say never true because I'm pretty external. Even when I have a lot of alone time, I still find a way to like connect with people because I have to, like, to process that I'm alive and I exist.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know a lot of autistic people that feel anxious when they're alone for too long or something like that, even though they also need a lot of alone processing time. And so like there's extroverted autistics, there's very social autistics, and there are autistics who would rather really just like never see a person. But I feel like a lot of the time that's mixed with trauma of just like, well, no one understands me, everyone's exhausting, I'm gonna go isolate myself, versus like, like, well, everyone's great, but I'm gonna go spend all of my time alone. I think it's usually like autistic people who have people that they love and appreciate and enjoy spending time with. They're like, oh, I need a few days alone and then I'll hang out with you. Or some people it's like, I need a few hours alone and then I'll come hang out with you. Or I had a roommate who just every morning, the first like 3 hours of the day, he was like, don't talk to me, no, whatever. And we like traveled together and we like kept that going as we were like going to different countries, just like, okay, morning time, we have our alone time, which I'm just like waiting, like someone talk to me. But like, like that's really common with autism. But I feel like this idea that like all autistics just never want to be around people, like that is possible, but that's not like the standard or something.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think there's just so many reasons why people might be more loner like, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's like, I don't know, like, I mean there's the internal, there's the external, and there's how they're perceived and how they actually are and all that. So it's
and just like being alone a lot, like enjoying a lot of alone time doesn't make you a loner. Like that has kind of a certain connotation. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that's why I don't think anyone would consider me that way, even though they know that I'm probably gonna spend a lot of time by myself and I need to live by myself. So
yeah, well, no one would ever consider me a loner, whatever the opposite of that is. I live with 4 people, 3 dogs, and 3 chickens. That's so cute. 65. It calms me to spin around or rock in a chair when I'm feeling stressed.
Oh, for sure. Oh, just thinking about it. Whoo, that's a nice man. It's like being a baby again.
Oh.
So, yeah, I would say yes on that one. That's a pretty direct question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a no for the spinning, but yeah, I think doesn't everybody like rocking? Isn't that like part of, like you said, it's like being a
Yeah, it's a
like
bit,
rocked
you're
as a
a baby,
baby.
you know.
Yeah. I don't feel like I need that all that often, but like, yeah, if you give me a rocking chair, I'm psyched. Why not?
Oh,
You
for
know?
sure. Like I've decided that I need spinning and rocking like objects in my life, even if I don't use them, just so that I can have them around. Like, 'cause it's not like when I'm upset, it's the first thing I think about. But if I happen to like just start twirling, I'm like, oh, this is nice. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is really nice. Why don't I do this more? You know? So
Yes,
why
that's
not
one of the
keep
things that
one?
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just said, so why don't I keep one around just in case? That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I coach my clients on all the time, just like remembering that those things exist, you know? It's like
Mhm.
remember like when you're upset, like, oh, I can't stop thinking about this stupid thing I said. Like, how many times have you spun around in the chair? Go spin around. You know?
Yes, yes. And having people in your life that remind you of the things like the tools that you have, I think are so important. That's why coaching is such a good tool because like it's you have somebody to be like, hey, remember you have all these tools. Remember you have these things that you can do when you're upset. Like maybe you don't remember now, but maybe we can practice so that you remember later. Or, maybe we can do check-ins so that you like, hey, remember you have these items. Like there's so many ways that coaching can help, like in that sense.
Totally. The next one is 69 is I like to be by myself as much as I can. And I think we covered that. So
Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
Oh,
70.
but I do want to say before we move on to
Oh,
7, that was not true when I was younger. So that's something. I
yeah.
was a lot more social when I was younger. I was a lot more in people's. I mean, my mom would say I played very well by myself, but I think I also liked to be around people. Like I was a parallel player, but I also loved to play with others. I was very much both, and it was pretty 50-50. Now it's probably more 70-30, probably because of life experiences. So, yeah.
Yeah, because when you have enough people misunderstanding you and being exhausting and taking your piece, then you start to be like, well, is it worth it? Is it really worth it?
I think I'm okay on that actually for
Oh,
now.
that's good. Yeah. Okay. 73. I can't tolerate things I dislike, like
Uh,
smells, textures, sounds, and colors.
very vague question. Um, some people might agree with that just off rip because maybe that is the case for them 90% of the time. I have to think about masking. I have to think about, I have to think about when I have to think. I mean, there are definitely times when I can't tolerate things I dislike because I'm just like I have no capacity for it. But let's say my life's going pretty good, then no, probably not the case. I can tolerate a lot of things to a point. I'm a pretty, I would say, people in general would probably describe me as more, I don't know, of a like relaxed, fairly relaxed person, mild mannered person, even though I wouldn't say I am. But um, in general, people don't really think that things ruffle my feathers very often because I'm pretty tolerant of things and I can adjust to what's going on around me pretty well. But that's mostly masking. It's not, it's not necessarily that it doesn't bother me. It's just that like I don't want to be bothered by it, so I'm not. So, and then eventually you can't fake the funk anymore. It's like, okay, this is like too annoying now. So I don't know. Like, how do you answer that question? I would probably just say I would probably default to what I think they would want me to answer it as, and just just be like, well, let's just go with true now and when I was young, I guess. Sure.
Yeah. This one's interesting for me because I think when I was really little, I had a hard time tolerating. I do have a lot of sensory issues, not with sounds.
Mm,
It's really interesting they said colors because I never hear about that. And I do have like weird things with
yeah.
colors. Like I
Mm,
have a lot of like little synesthesia things, like numbers have colors and like things
mm,
like that. And certain colors can make, like color combinations can make me nauseous. Like I can feel either like later, like it just like really changes how I feel if I see like different color things. So my house is really colorful, like my walls green, whatever, because it really matters to me. And then smells, like there's not a lot of smells that I have a big problem with, but fish is like the big one. I mean, I used to change like adult diapers and stuff. Like I don't have a problem with most, but like something about fish, like when I was a kid, I said it was because I was a mermaid and they were my friends, but like now I'm like, I don't know what it is, so I can't handle it. Like fish cooking. And like it's a big issue with like my roommate where like we have to like coordinate, like, okay, you're going to be out of the house this day so I can cook fish, and then like fans and all this stuff. And I'm like, thank you for understanding. So like I can't tolerate that. I'll throw up. Like, I mean, I can, but I'll be miserable, like, what do you mean by can tolerate? I can tolerate a lot. I've got chronic pain, like, but do I want to? No. And so I think when I was a kid, it was like I would have little tantrums over certain like smells, like having to go to a restaurant that smelled like fish, or things like that, or like some clothing textures. My mom wanted me to wear those like frilly itchy dresses, and I was just like, heck no. I'm not like clothing tags are not really a problem, but like certain things are. And but during my like teen years and like early 20s, I feel like none of this stuff really bothered me that much. Maybe the smell of fish, but maybe I didn't encounter it as much. But like a lot of the stuff that bothered me when I was a kid didn't during those times. And I don't feel like it was masking. It wasn't me being like, oh, I'll just hide it. Like I really like didn't even think about it. And then as I'm older, it's come back. Like I feel like I have less tolerance now, and I don't know what that's about. But I've been like curious. I'm like, is it just that one thing is moving to Portland from Southern California, I have so many more allergies, and I think that I have this feeling that is related. Like I am more irritable here, and like more sensory sensitive.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think a lot of times, like, we have less capacity when we're being compromised by, the things around us, even if we don't necessarily notice it, or if it's subtle, or maybe we do notice it, but it's like, I don't know, we don't consider it as like a cost, so I definitely think that makes sense. And you know what, you bring up a good point. I'm thinking about, there are some things that I absolutely cannot tolerate. Like when I was young, like there's some foods I just hate, and I will never not hate, and even talking about them makes me nauseous. And like there was a point in time when I was younger where like somebody was talking about one of the foods I got the most beef with, strawberries. Hate them. And she was talking about them, and I just was like, stop talking about them. And she would not stop. Like she was teasing me, laughing, yelling the word. And I just started crying because I was so angry that she wouldn't stop talking about it. And people were looking at me like, what? But I had to leave the room. I was so upset. Like,
I wonder if you're allergic.
And you know what? That's what my aunt thinks. My mom doesn't think so. She's like, we've never really had an issue with that with you. But my aunt says that I did have an issue with that. So I don't know. I don't eat
you ate strawberries. You're like, this makes my mouth burn. Like,
right,
like why do you guys like this?
Right. And you know what? It's very possible because, I recently have found out. I realized a memory came back after I tried this again, but I'm allergic to kiwi. And when I was younger, I was also allergic to kiwi, and I was like, why don't I eat kiwi more? It's so good. But then I was like, there's kind of this electric shock in my mouth, actually. Maybe that's not good. And now my throat's itchy. And I was like, oh. So maybe, I don't know if strawberries and kiwis are related in the sense that like maybe you could have like, I don't know.
I wonder.
But it's a possibility. It's a possibility for sure.
But people not knowing they're allergic thing, like my sister was, what is it, Dramamine? But we were in the car and she's car sick, and I was like, I have some Dramamine, do you want it? And she's like, oh yeah, I guess, but I hate taking Dramamine, how it like makes your throat like close up and like makes you itchy, your tongue itchy. And I was like,
hello?
No.
That's
not a side effect of the medication. That is an allergy.
I think that's a histamine reaction. I don't know about that one.
Never mind. Give me that back.
Right. Or when people say things are spicy that aren't, you're like,
Um,
no, that's not supposed to be hot, actually.
don't
So
eat that. Don't
yeah,
eat that.
stop.
Kids at home, if it makes your tongue itchy, that's an allergy. Don't do
Right,
it.
right. Your mouth is burning and you're eating cucumber. That's not supposed to happen. So
Oh, humans.
pretty
Okay,
freaky.
here's a stupid question. Number 70, this is our last one. So number 77, I like to have close friends.
Well, what? Who doesn't? I mean, I guess maybe some people don't, but I think that would more go in that would be a different diagnosis if I were to think about it than autism. Uh anyway, yeah, I do. And I always have. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, I feel like there's this misunderstanding that autistics being like frustrated with human like interaction, or exhausted with human interaction, or whatever, is like they don't like people. And it's like, that's not, I mean, maybe that happened over like certain situations happen, but again, that's like, there's trauma, there's like other things going on there. And sure, you can be an autistic person that doesn't want to have close friends, I guess, but that wouldn't be like diagnostic. Like that seems like that's like, but if you can ask the why, like, why don't you want to have, like, I don't want close friends. Why not? You can say, well, then I have to do what they want to do and talk about what they want to talk about. And I want to do what my special interest. Okay. That's autistic, right? Or like, I don't want to have close friends because they don't understand me. And I have to, like, and they're always mean to me. Okay. That could be like part of autism trauma, like whatever, like, so that's like, but if you like, who doesn't want, I mean, yeah, like you said, everyone's different, but I think that most humans would love to have a close friend that understood them, that they felt comfortable around, that they felt safe around, that they could be themselves around.
Like, yeah. And I feel like it would be a better question to ask if you want like a lot of friends. I feel like that's a much better question, because that would make sense more with autism. If you think about also some of the other questions they ask, like, groups are intimidating, and like, I do better with interpersonal conversations and relationships, and it's harder for me to keep track of relationships when I have more than 5 of them. Like, that makes more sense than being like close friend. And also, like, when you say close friends, how many? Like 1, 2, like,
right.
Like in general,
that's true. I can see plenty of autistic people being like, I like to have close friend.
Right, close friend. just us, locked in like this. That's fine. So maybe if they view it like that, like the S, no, take that S off. Now we're cooking with gas. Like, maybe I could.
Which I think is funny, because like being a extroverted ADHDer, like I really enjoy being around autistic people. But when I was younger, I didn't know it was autistic people. I was just like, oh, I really love those like kind of introverted, like funny, well, quirky weirdos that, but like they can never give me enough of their time. So I'll have like 5 best friends, but I'm their only best friend because they need the rest of the time to be alone. And like when I was younger, that was really the case. And it's to some extent a little bit true now even, but like, I'm like, for the amount you need of me, like I'm going to need 5 introverts, whatever,
Yeah, and you know what? Younger me probably would have been the same way. I think now I'm like, there's just life is too complicated and people are too. But when I was younger, I probably would have wanted like a nice group where like everybody was not friends with each other. They were all just friends with me, because that way we could be very close, but I'm not like the odd one out that like everybody likes each other more than me. Like, no, you guys don't know each other at all. You guys can't be friends. You're just my friend. All of you are my friend, and we only come together on my birthday.
I definitely got myself into a situation where I had a lot of those like satellite friends, and then I started bringing them together more. And then because they were all autistic, or like more, I don't, some of them aren't diagnosed, so I don't want to like say, or like they haven't like identified that way, but a lot of them have. that like they all kind of understood each other in a way that I didn't. And then to some extent, like they would bond with each other more than me and be like, she's annoying sometimes, isn't she? Or whatever. And I was like, hey, you were all my friends. But they couldn't keep up with each other for long enough, you know, like without me like being like, all right, guys, we're getting together again. So it was fine. But I did sometimes feel like it was like the Meerkat Squad. It's like, I love all you autistics, but I feel a little left out sometimes.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I think I feel that way among like autistic people that don't have ADHD a lot of the time too. It's just like I feel like there's a piece missing here that we're just not getting each other, you know, and you're annoyed by the things that I do that you can't really relate to, you know. So, you know, we're cool, but like we need a lot of time apart because you just don't get me in the same way. And I don't really get you in the same way.
Yeah, which was exactly why we started the Meerkat Squad, because I was hearing that from so many ADHD autistics that were like, I don't quite, like, I love my autistic friends, I don't quite fit in with them, and I love my ADHD friends, but I don't quite fit in. Like, are there people, where can I find people like me with this like special combo? And like, I guess we need to make a space for this. Like, you know?
I mean, it blew my mind when I realized that there was, you know, that sort of Venn diagram, and like there were a lot of people experiencing that, because I was just like, you know, I just thought I never could fit in any box, and I just was like one of those people that just, you know, I was just labelless until I realized like, oh, there's a lot of us weirdos that are just kind of floating around with a bunch of labels that, you know, we kind of half fit. You know, and that's our label. So, you know, that's
the combo platters. Yeah.
It's
awesome.
So funny.
All right. Well, I think that we probably established that you're autistic and I'm not again.
Yes.
For those watching, I did, when I took the RAADS-R, the first time I got a 27 and the second time I got a 14. Do you remember what your scores were, Lena?
Oh, I have no idea, but it was high.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like, this is not diagnostic, you know, like, because there could be other things going on. There could be trauma. There could be, no one ever talks about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which has so much overlap with both ADHD and autism, the sensory stuff, even like the monotropism to some extent, like there can be like rigid thinking and stuff like that. So, like there's other things that could be going on. However, I think I'm a good example of that. Like ADHD will not necessarily give you those 200 scores. So if your score is 200 and you're diagnosed ADHD, you just might want to think about if something else is going on. It doesn't mean you are autistic, but like, did you have some social trauma? And like, maybe if you hung out with some autistic people or listened to some autistic people that are of your demographic, like similar to you in interest, age, like all those different things, like gender, even race, like if you can hear people from your demographic talk about their autism, you might be surprised that it's not what you thought it was. Yeah.
I'm trying to see
all right.
Find my test info. But it's taking forever.
I'll just put on the screen, this was Lena's test score.
Okay, that can work.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much, Lena, for coming.
Thank you. This was fun.
And everyone, if you are an AuDHDer and you're interested in building some AuDHD community and learning some tools and skills, then please check out the Meerkat Squad on my website. Link
we'd love to have you. Sorry, link in bio.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.